Alrighty, hello and welcome to the Vision of Being podcast. Today, back for another episode, and I'm really excited to share this one with you because this one is about how I manifested private yoga clients using magical mushrooms and mushroom ceremony, and also how I lead my students, my clients, and groups of people through mushroom ceremony. So we'll see how this goes. We have the beautiful ocean in the background here in Costa Rica if you're watching this on the video. And then you may hear a little bit of music in the distance. Today is Envision Festival. It's been all week. I've been going all week, the last 5 days. And I have to leave early today, so I'm not going to get to make it to the festival. I wanted to get a little work done, get this podcast recorded before going on to Lake Audetlan. So yeah, here we are, and hopefully all the audio comes out good. So enjoy these animal noises, ocean noises in the background of this episode. So I think I'll go first into the story of how I manifested 3 clients in a period of 2 weeks. Right after following a mushroom ceremony I did to call in these specific clients. So I'll give you a little bit of background on that story. It sounds like super magical and unbelievable, but this really happened. And this is what made me realize how powerful mushroom, psychedelic, and spiritual ceremonies can be. So this happened during the pandemic. It was about a year into the pandemic. This was a point where, because the yoga studios were closed, restaurants were closed. I had been a server or cocktail waitress in my early 20s, so that was something that I always could go back on. But when the pandemic happened, there weren't yoga studios open to teach at, and there weren't restaurants open. So I didn't even have my serving job to fall back on, as many of us felt, who weren't working 9 to 5s and had the option to do remote. People like me who were doing in-person work. Anyways, so pretty much at this point, unemployment had run out, and the yoga studios and restaurants still weren't open. And so there was this period of time where I realized I only had money for a couple of months of rent left. And I'd been trying to manifest clients, like a few private yoga clients, for a couple of years. I'd known that I had wanted private clients, just the ability to work one-on-one with people, the increase in income, and really just pretty much my thinking was, if I can just get a few private clients doing even 1 or 2 sessions a week each at $100 or something around there, dollars per hour, then I can pay my rent. So pretty much I knew yoga studios were closed. I couldn't do my fallback work of being a server or waitress somewhere. That wasn't even an option. So I was totally forced to go into this new mindset of, okay, well, the only way I'm going to pay my rent on this lease that I can't break is to get private clients, one-on-one people, because like I said, studios weren't open, restaurants weren't open. And I knew that this was something doable, something that I just really needed a few people to say yes. And then everything would be back on track in my life. So I knew that I had some deeper, unconscious, subconscious work to do around feeling worthy enough for these clients, feeling abundant enough, like I deserved $100 or $150 an hour. And I knew that there was just some mental blocks that was keeping me from manifesting this new reality that I wanted, and to have private clients for the first time. And so one day I was at my house in Venice alone. My roommate was gone at the time. And I decided to do a heroic dose of mushrooms by myself. I think I took somewhere around 5 grams. I can't fully remember, somewhere between 4 and 6 grams. But it was a really heavy dose of mushrooms. And so whenever I'll go into more when I start talking about how I lead psilocybin mushroom ceremonies, like the process and the order that I do things in and do the activities in. I'll go into that in a little bit. So you'll kind of hear the whole process from start to finish. So with this ceremony that I was doing, really, during the ceremony, there's a mixture of yoga, meditation, breath work, listening to music, journaling, setting intentions, clearing the space. It's this entire ritual that is happening really in service to this frequency, to this manifestation that you're trying to call into your life. So it's almost like you're calling in and bringing in this thing that you want for the tangible reality into your inner and more subtle realms first, because what is within, so as without. And so trying to bring in that full landed feeling and frequency vibration of having these people, these new students, clients in my life. And so during the ceremony, I had I remember crying and sobbing so much because I knew that I was going to have to let go and kill off this part of myself that was keeping me safe, but not allowing me to thrive into my fullest potential. And I just cried and released this person, just knowing deep in my gut that I had to make this happen. It wasn't a choice. I really needed these clients to come into my life finally, in a very real way. And so the mushrooms really allowed me to access these deeper parts of myself where I was hiding all these fears of, will it be too scary and intimate? Will anybody want to work with me? Will it be awkward? Will I be good at it? Are people really going to pay me? Are people going to keep paying me consistently on a weekly basis for months on end? Are they going to want to stay with me? Is this even going to work out long term? There was all these silly fears around getting these private clients. And something about being so deep in that medicine really gave me access to drop away all of those fears and to tap into the feeling and the essence of being worthy and being powerful enough and being, deserving enough to have these clients and students in this mutually beneficial relationship that I really wanted. And I knew that, in my heart of hearts, I knew that I could really help people one-on-one, and that it would also really help me too. And so during the ceremony, yes, I cried, I released, I did yoga and just felt all the fear leaving my body. And the crazy thing is, which I've definitely noticed this with ceremony, with psychedelic ceremony, is that the thing that you want and the thing that you are manifesting doesn't, for me at least, has never come the next day. It's not like I do the ceremony and then immediately right after, my life is just changed from A to B or something like that. Really, it's the ceremony happens, I call in the manifestation, and then looking back in hindsight, weeks or months later, then I can really see how that played out. And it's almost like every time I've called something in, it manifests, even if it takes a little bit of time. Because remember, we can change our spiritual and our inside nature immediately because it's not made of this physical reality. We can change our vibration in a moment. But the physical, tangible reality is a lot more dense. It takes a lot more time to move. So first you move that vibration, you change the frequency within you, resonating to the thing that you want, and then it takes the physical universe a little bit to catch up with you. So I hadn't really correlated for a few months this ceremony that I did, which was completely centered around getting private clients for yoga. And the realization that So I looked back on my calendar a few months after this ceremony, because at this point, I had a few private clients that I was working with about 2 times a week for each of them. So I was doing about 5 or 6 private sessions a week, enough to make my rent, enough to do all the things I needed to do. And I was so thankful. And so one day I was just curious, and I looked back in my Google Calendar, because that's where I put everything. So that's like where the first sessions were scheduled, where every session is scheduled. I put everything in my Google Calendar, especially if it's a class or something I need to remember, of course. And so I looked back in my Google Calendar for when these clients came into my life, and I realized that all 3 of these clients came into my life within 2 weeks of the ceremony. And I had not realized that it was that instant. So 2 of them came from a friend, just through a recommendation. She referred to me 2 of her clients that she had done some different healing modalities with, and knew that they wanted a yoga teacher. Random. And both of them ended up staying with me. One of them was with me until I left LA last July. So we were together as student and teacher for a year and a half, or in between a year and a half and 2 years. The other one had stayed with me, for about a year. And then the third one, the way that the third one happened, at the time it's when the yoga studios were like just opening back up, and I was working front desk at Shefa Yoga in Venice. And a guy just comes in and walks up to the front desk and just says, "I'd like private yoga. Who can I talk to?" And I'm just, looking at him, I'm like, well, considering you came up to me, I'll be your private yoga teacher. And so then we started doing private yoga. So literally within 2 weeks of me doing this really deep ceremony and feeling the internal shift, 3 clients came to me, 2 through recommendation. 1 literally walked right up to me and asked for private yoga, which is crazy. I didn't connect those dots until months later, looking back on it. And literally my first real, consistent 3 private clients came to me within 2 weeks after doing the mushroom ceremony. And I've had this experience using psychedelic ceremony to help manifest and to help bring things into your life or help you release fears. This has been recurring and helping me to manifest, open up different dimensions, to just really tap into all the things that I want to bring into my life. This one with the clients just happens to be a really super tangible one. The other ones are perhaps more subtle, maybe feeling more confident or releasing fears around something. Or, sometimes you can go into a ceremony and just be there to receive and to feel into your body. That doesn't always have to be an intention for something that you're manifesting. But I have really seen the power over the years of doing psychedelic ceremony. And I feel that in the past couple of years is when I really started to kind of tap into a sequence of events that works really well with the process of the mushroom journey in helping you to get the most out of the experience and not ever feel lost in the experience. So I will go into a little bit about what that process looks like, what it looks and feels like when I'm leading myself through a psychedelic ceremony, or when I'm leading a client or a group of people, because it's pretty much the same process or same order I like to do things in. But once again, it's kind of all you can never just have it planned perfectly. There's always going to be that room for freedom and for improvisation, and to like take longer on some things, skip some things, reading the energy. Once again, it's a super fluid process. But in general, I have found that, so first, it's really nice to either check in with yourself. If you're doing it by yourself, you could do a journaling session before, get really clear on your intentions before you even take the medicine. If you're with a client or a student one-on-one, then it can be nice just to have a one-on-one conversation. This could go on for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, if they are really feeling like they want to talk to you. And this helps you to understand what it is that they're trying to get out of the ceremony. Because the more information that you have about what they're going through, do they need love? Do they need acceptance? Do they need to let go of something? Do they need to feel abundant? Are they trying to call in something? Are they calling in love? It's like there's literally so many things. And so the more specific that you can understand their intention, the more you can weave that intention throughout the entire practice, weaving it into the meditations that you use, the wording, where you're going to touch their body, where you're going to focus, what chakras you're going to focus on, what mantras you might do, what yoga poses you might do with them. So it all relates. The more that you can really deeply understand what they want from the experience, or if they just want to sink into the experience, then you can tailor the entire flow to weave in their intention wherever you can. If you're in a group setting, this would be the part where perhaps everybody could go around and share their intention, what they want. So if you're alone, you can journal one-on-one with somebody, just talk one-on-one. Group settings, really nice for everybody to share. So that's the first step, is getting really clear on your intention and what you want before you even ingest the medicine. So after you have talked about what you want to do, now you can hold the medicine. And this is where the ceremony really begins. And it's really lovely to have incense going, amazing music. You really want to have the space be really clean and no clutter anywhere, because when you're on this medicine, you're really hyper aware of everything. So if things are looking super out of place and the floor is dirty and it's just not a welcoming environment, it's not going to be great for the trip, for the experience. And if you have ever had a bad trip, usually this is caused by either the people that you're around, and perhaps it's not a trusting environment, or it's the environment itself. So perhaps you were at a party, it was too crowded, or you were in a house, but it wasn't very clean, the energy wasn't very good. So usually it's about who you're around and the environment. So as long as you're in a trusting space with people that you trust, and the environment is clean and taken care of and smells good and has good music going, pretty much you're gonna have a good trip. So that's really important, to get the environment to be set up perfectly, having candles, like dim lighting if possible. This makes literally a huge difference. So definitely take the time before the ceremony even begins to set the space and clear the energy, sage the energy before even starting. So yes, now that your space is set, your intentions have been already discovered, thought about, now it's time to bless the medicine. So having the music playing, you just can hold the medicine in your hands. Either you can speak the intention out loud, or everybody can internally say their intention, just really placing that intention into the medicine, however you're going to be consuming it. And so taking a moment with the medicine, feeling into it, really taking your time in this moment to create this sacred pause before ingesting. And once you and everybody feels like they have sufficiently taken that pause, then you can partake in the medicine. So I feel like different facilitators, of course, do this differently. I don't have any training in being a psilocybin mushroom facilitator. This is simply from my own personal experience, what worked for me, and I've kind of been refining this process for years. I mean, I've been taking psychedelics for a long time and using them in a alone spiritual setting for a few years now. And so that process has been getting more honed and more honed. So yeah, I have not studied any other kinds of psychedelic ceremony. So this is just simply from my personal experience, what has been working for me so far, what's really been helping me manifest things. So after you partake in the medicine, I like to take a little bit just so that I can drop in and be in that same etheric space with whoever I'm doing it with. But I'm only going to take maybe like a third or a fourth of what they're taking. So if they're taking 4 grams, maybe I'll take 1. Or if they're taking 3, maybe I'll take 0.5, something like that, just so that I do like to be in the space with them a little bit, but I still want to have a foot on reality, and I want them to be more blasted off than I am. Because, I still want to be there to help them lead, but I want to enter into that juicy space so I can really be at their level with them. So after the medicine is partaken, I think it's a nice moment just to lay down and just do a nice meditation for them at this point. If you're by yourself, you could put on a meditation, maybe 15 minutes or so, just to allow yourself to just kind of rest. You know, there can be a little bit of like hype and build up because you're like, how's it going to go? What's going to happen? What's going to be released? Am I going to cry? Am I going to freak out? Like, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with it, then it can be a little bit unsettling or nervous to go through this process. And so I think it can be really nice just to immediately lay down and make sure that you have pillows and blankets on hand. Sometimes your body temperature can get dysregulated when you're on the medicine and you can get really cold. So it's nice just to have everything that you need already ready. So have water on hand, pillows, blankets, and just be as comfortable as possible. So in this first part, having them lay down or you lay down and just, either leading people through a meditation. You could play a few songs, like really slow songs, just to ground everybody in. You could play instruments, or even just let everybody rest in silence for a little bit. But I think it's really nice just to start off by just having this moment to just totally relax, not have to even think or worry or try and sit up, just lay down and relax and just let everything start to slow down. And after, about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how long you would want to make it. Once again, everything is just a guesstimation and just an idea for you to explore if you'd like to try this kind of sequence of events. So after the meditation, I think it's really nice to move into some movement. And this could be usually when I'm leading just one person through these ceremonies, it'll be pretty chill yoga. So really we're just doing like cat-cows, down dog, pigeon pose, kind of like a mix between yin and hatha. Like we're not doing a bunch of warriors and chaturangas, vinyasas. You could totally do that. And when I've taught this in bigger groups before, we have done a little bit like more movement. And I think we even incorporated some dance in the big group ceremony. When you're doing one-on-one though, I've noticed it's really nice to just do a little bit slower yoga. And once again, also it depends on the person's preference. If they're young and fiery and want to move, then move them. If they're a little bit older or just don't have the inclination that they want to work out right now during the ceremony, then yin yoga can be perfect. So once again, there's no rules, but you're just kind of like reading the room. And I think it can be really nice when you're one-on-one with somebody to do a little bit slower hatha, simple poses like low lunge, lizard, pigeon, and adjusting. So starting to place your hands on their body and giving some hands-on adjustments. This can really ground them. Like touch can be so grounding. I don't know if you've ever had the experience, I bet many of you have, when you're in a yoga class and if the teacher just gives you a little touch or maybe during Shavasana presses down on your shoulders, immediately something about the touch can just ground you in a way that words can't. And so by starting kind of with this yoga and starting to open up the physical body to move the prana energy around and also giving some hands-on adjustments, especially if it's one-on-one, to start grounding the person really into this moment and also building and facilitating that sense of trust that you're going to need as you go on and go deeper and deeper into the medicine together. So usually these yoga sessions last around 30 to 45 minutes, I would guess. 30 minutes to an hour, really varies, just depending on, what they want and need. And by the end of the yoga, so pretty much I feel like the yoga sessions end because if you've taken a bit of the medicine too, you can start to feel, and it's going to be a little bit different for everybody, but just knowing that if it's starting to kick in for you and you took a little bit less, it's probably starting to kick in for them. And I feel like you can kind of tell when it starts kicking in, you can just feel it. And so at this point, we've done the meditation and maybe 30 minutes to an hour of yoga. And so usually the movement section can stop once you really feel okay, the medicine's really starting to kick in now. Okay, we've moved, the body feels good, and stretching feels so good on the mushrooms. There's been so many yoga poses I've unlocked on mushrooms. People ask me how did you get so good at yoga? And I really all the time just want to answer have you ever done mushrooms and just done yoga for 3 hours? Because there's been so many poses I've unlocked, just, ending up in humble warrior. And then on the yoga or on the mushrooms, you just are so curious and you're where can I go? And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, my head is behind my foot. And then I'm looking up and it's oh, well, where can this leg go? And yeah, pretty much I've found crazy variations on mushrooms. It just opens your mind and also literally opens your physical body. It feels like you can stretch so much further on the mushrooms, which you kind of have to be careful about because I've definitely pulled a couple of things thinking oh my God, I'm going so much further in this pose. Let's see if I can keep going further. And yeah, that's never a good idea. So if you're on mushrooms and you're stretching, you're doing yoga, and you go further than you have before, just stop there and be really happy that you just went further. You don't need to go 2 or 3 steps further because, just being mindful, you could hurt yourself if you're not careful. So yeah, we don't need to do crazy yoga when we're doing this in ceremony. We're just doing a little bit of movement to kind of help wake up the body and to facilitate this medicine starting to turn on in the system. And once the medicine has fully turned on, that's when usually I would have the person or have everybody lay back down. And so now moving into the sound healing portion of this. So at this point, the person is fully on the medicine. They are freaking in it. And so, having them lay down, really a dark room is better. But of course, if it's the daylight, you're under a patio, kind of like I am here. You work with different settings and environments, of course. So having them lay down, I've been doing for this section sound healing. So playing the bowls, playing crystal bowls, so beautiful, singing mantra. I have the metal Tibetan bowls that you can place on people. And it really depends on what this person is needing. So for instance, I did a few private ceremonies kind of over the holidays. It was really random. Once again, like 3 different sessions just came to me like within a 1-month period. I don't do them that often for other people because I don't advertise it very much. But randomly, these 3 people kind of like asked me and found me. And so so for one of them, it was right around the new year, and he really wanted to call in like more prosperity for his business. And so for instance, for him, during the sound bath, I was just over and over again doing the Lakshmi mantra, Om Shrim Lakshmi Mahadevi Namaha. So bowing to the great goddess and salutations. And so pretty much I was just chanting to Lakshmi, goddess of abundance, as I'm doing this. I'm downloading these codes into him, and I'm looking at the person while I'm singing the mantra and doing the sound bath. So that way I'm directing the energy of this mantra into that person based on their specific intention. And so for him, we were just talking to Lakshmi for this whole sound bath. I'm telling her, Lakshmi, please bless this person with abundance in the new year. We're calling it in, raising the frequency to that vibration of abundance. Lakshmi, bless us. So we were working with Lakshmi energy, chanting, singing her name, and really bringing that frequency into his body. And he said that was one of his favorite parts of the whole ceremony was this part during the sound bath. But for instance, there was a woman I worked with who had been on antidepressants for years and had come off of them like a year before our session. And so after being on them for so many years, she was still really adjusting and kind of trying to find a new baseline. But I really felt that there was still some of the old medicine lingering in her system. And so with her, I was really called to work with the purification mantra. And the purification mantra is pretty long. It goes, Om apivitraha pravitrua sarvavashtan gatopiwa yahas marit pandrikaksham sabahya bientraha suchihi. And so I literally kneeled down next to her, started at her head, and I just started repeating this mantra over and over again. And I was just going through each part of her body from head to toe. And I felt energetically as if I was moving this medicine down so that it could exit out of her feet. And as you're going through the person, especially, I feel like if you've taken a little medicine and you're tapped into that sacred, spiritual, untangible space even more, then you can really feel where the person needs extra work. So there were certain areas of her body where I could sense that she was holding either emotional trauma, perhaps like psychological, physical, like you can just tell which like chakras or energy centers or part of the body are blocked. And so as I was moving down her body, just repeating this mantra over and over and over again, sometimes the mantra would get really fast and sometimes I'd get really loud with the mantra, just depending on the part of the body and feeling if that part of the body needed softness with the mantra or if it needed to be cleared and for me to really pick up the pace and the volume and the energy of the mantra. So that's just all an intuitive process. And I remember getting to her feet, which I feel like after this whole moving the energy down into her feet, using this purification mantra probably a couple hundred times, going down her body. I remember grabbing her feet and just pulling. And I'm using my hands too. Like I'm kind of doing like Reiki techniques, but also hands-on techniques. And so I remember pulling her toes and pushing her toes back. And I was just doing the mantra over and over again, pulling out this energy, pulling out, imagining that I'm pulling out any residue of these antidepressants from her body. And I literally felt and saw this kind of dark energy that I was pulling out of her feet. And then I was just letting it go and letting it come out of her body and really helping her to clear all of that energy out. And also during that session in particular, I brought my Shruti box, one of my new instruments, and it's kind of like a harmonium or an accordion. It has that kind of bellows that you use to create the air, the sound go through, and it has the different musical notes. So each note on the musical scale, since there's 7, correlate with one of our chakras. So the note of C starts at the root, D would be sacral, and it goes on from there. B being your crown chakra. And so using the Shruti box, I would play each note so that this frequency was going that correlates with that chakra. And then I was doing the bija mantra, which is the seed syllable for each chakra. The syllable that when you say it, it creates a vibration in that part of your body. And so I was moving through with the Shruti box, doing the bija mantra through all of her chakras. And once again, I could really just feel which chakra had a lot of energy or needed to be released. And I could just pause on that chakra, do the bija mantra, get louder, get softer, and help her to clear the energy out of those areas. And that one felt really powerful. Like I'd only had the Shruti box like a month at that point because I just got it for Christmas. Or maybe I'd only had it for a couple weeks at that point. Yeah, and so this was my first time really using it where I was like, whoa, like this is powerful. Like it was a moment with the Shruti box where I was like, okay, this is rad. This is really, really taking us somewhere. And so usually that sound section lasts about an hour because this is such a nice juicy section for people, like because when you're on mushrooms, music sounds amazing and you can like feel the music and and it's just really lovely and it's really safe space because you feel with this live music element that you're really entertained and you feel like you're being taken care of, especially when the mantras are being done over them and you're placing your hands on their body and making it intuitive and using their name and piercing their intention throughout this entire ceremony and sound ceremony. So yeah, that can be really nice to do that for like a whole hour. You could even play some music at the beginning and end, like play a few songs here and there that are just like really lovely songs. Because that can be nice, especially if you don't have a lot of skills or you don't have a lot of instruments like singing bowls and things like that. You can always play music as long as the music is really thoughtfully curated and just really good music because, yeah, good music, mushrooms is a really good combo. So at this point, you're probably couple hours into the ceremony, maybe 2 to 3 hours if you'd had a really long conversation before. Like you could be maybe 3 hours in at this point if you'd had a 45-minute conversation, you did the opening meditation, the yoga, the sound bath portion. And so after this section, it's kind of nice to drop back into the physical body because now we've been in the ether, we've been just kind of away, and it's nice to come back. And so there's a therapy that I'm learning called Sacred Body Awakening, and I've incorporated this into the last 3 ceremonies that I did for people. And it's been actually amazing. One of the other clients told me that this was his favorite part, actually. And so with the Sacred Body Awakening, perhaps this is a technique I'll go into in a different video or podcast, but pretty much the gist of it is that it's a loving touch therapy. And so I'll ask them to wear either a tank top or shorts for this section. You know, if they were cold, maybe they did have a jacket on hand, but they can take it off just for this section. And pretty much they can kind of like lay their head on your lap, and all you're going to do is like give this really light, super light, almost like you're kind of caressing or tickling somebody, but just the most light, sensual, loving touch. And you're just running your fingers over their arms, their head, their face, eyebrows, neck, back. Hopefully you can get a little back action in there. And then while you're doing this, you're repeating affirmations to them. So for instance, the person that was calling in abundance, I could be touching their body and just saying, feeling the beautiful feelings of abundance coming into your skin. Feel the feelings of pleasure as you call in everything that you want and desire. Or if the person was letting go of something, you could just do affirmations of things like feel yourself being held by the Divine Mother, imagining that I'm the Divine Mother, knowing that you're never separate, knowing that you can let go and that the universe will always be here to catch you, always lovingly holding you in her embrace. So don't be scared to let go, because just know that you're so loved and held by the universe. So pretty much you're just giving beautiful affirmation to this person. This is the moment when you're really talking to them, giving them affirmation. Really, it's almost like you're giving them a calming and spiritual pep talk based around what their intention was. And as you're really kind of infusing them with these beautiful affirmations, you're giving this really light, loving touch, just like a mother would. That's the thing. The part of this part is it's just like a motherly touch. It's sensual, but completely unsexual. Nothing sexual about it, just sensual, touching the arms, touching the legs, the back, the belly. And you can kind of go around them so that you have access to different body parts. And of course, before the session starts, I usually run through with them just the general order about what we're doing. And then I run through with them this part of the Sacred Body Awakening. Because in one of the positions that we do, I kind of have them put one of their arms under my leg. So they're almost like hugging my thigh and they're laying down. And then their head is resting on my inner thigh. And so we kind of go through the different positions and I let them know what I'm going to be doing in the Sacred Body Awakening. That'll be really light touch with my fingertips. And so that way, if for some reason they weren't okay with this kind of treatment, then before the ceremony starts, you can talk about this and maybe not do that section or do something differently. So yeah, it's nice to kind of go over with them before just the general layout. So that way, when they're on the medicine, they'll kind of remember what you had talked about. And you're not having to explain things from scratch on the medicine. So yes, beforehand, we've already spoken about like the few positions that we're going to do for the Sacred Body Awakening and what it is. So that, yeah, when it does end up it's that time that there's not like confusion and like, oh, what's going on? What is this? So they already know what they're expecting coming into this section. And so this part doesn't last as long. I would say maybe 15 or 20 minutes, maybe 30 if you really felt like you were going really slow and they were being really receptive to this part of it. Once again, it's all fluid. I mean, you could even do this section for an hour and it would be lovely and just like focus on every part of the body really closely. And yeah, this part can be powerful because we don't really get this really thoughtful, loving touch as much as we should. Because even from our romantic partners, like we might give each other massages or, we're intimate in physical touch, but I don't think often in very many relationships, people are just taking the time to lovingly and unsexually, without the intent of it moving to sex, of giving this really loving touch and affirmations about how amazing the person is. This is something we actually don't really receive much of. And so to receive this loving and safe touch in such a deeply grounded spiritual place on the medicine while receiving these affirmations of what you have for your intention, this part can be really powerful of landing back into the physical body and really feeling pleasure while aligning the frequency of the thought with those affirmations. And so, yes, this sacred body awakening touch therapy portion comes after the sound bath. And at this point, you could be anywhere between 3 to 4 hours into the session. And so after this, since we've been in the active ceremony for, probably coming on about 3 hours, at this point, they're probably starting to come down a little bit, right? Because about that first hour, you're coming up. By the time it hits about hour 2, you're kind of peaking. And then by the time you're getting towards hour 3, I'd say usually the energy is starting to come down. Maybe unless you took like a actual heroic dose, like 6-7 grams or something, then you might still be coming up and it's going to last a lot longer. But generally, I've been doing these ceremonies with people with about averaging 3 grams. And so with about a 3-gram dose, I would say you're starting to come down around the 3rd hour mark, which is where we would be right now after the Sacred Body Awakening. And so for the last part, then I would have them lay back down, and then I would not touch them for this part. So it's kind of nice with this flow because it goes through touch and non-touch, because we can get a little bit drained from either. Like if we're not touched the entire time, maybe we feel not seen or just not connected with. But if we're being touched too much and can't go into our own zone, then that's not great either. So this sequence is nice because it goes meditation and then yoga with assist, so touching. Sound bath, no touching. Sacred body awakening. Once again, we're getting physical touch. And then for the last part, I like to lay them back down for a meditation with the pillows and the blankets, and then lead them through a Yoga Nidra. And so this yoga sleep is where we are relaxing individually each part of the body. So you're guiding them through each different section all the way down to like your left shoulder, left thumb, left pinky, and you're going through even through the toes on each side of the body. And you can look up a lot of different scripts for Yoga Nidra. It's actually really interesting to learn about. It's like a lot deeper than just relaxing each part of the body. And so I think that this is a really beautiful way to kind of end the ceremony with this Yoga Nidra, and then you're really relaxing and bringing this calming attention to each part of the body. You're helping them relax back down into the ground. The Sacred Body Awakening could be a lot for people because it is quite intense and intimate, and it can be a pretty intense experience on the medicine as well. And so this meditation can be a really beautiful way to just bring them back to themselves, bring themselves back to their physical body. Maybe they were blasted off in the ether for a little while, and this can just bring them back and bring them back down. And so you would probably want like really chill, meditative music playing with no words, since you're going to be speaking and you don't want to be competing with a mantra or something like that. So just being mindful that it is nice, I think, to have some music playing in the background, but just making sure that the volume of the music is not competing with your voice and that there's no words in the music during this section. So ending with this Yoga Nidra. And then it can even be nice to just end with some music or a few songs or silence if that's what you're feeling, and just kind of end with, I would say, at least 5 to 10 minutes, especially if you're putting on a couple of nice ambient songs, to just have silence. Because you've been talking a lot, right? Like you're probably talking through the opening meditation, through the yoga, hopefully not too much through the yoga, and you're giving them some space. Doing mantra in the sound bath, and then doing these affirmations, and then the Yoga Nidra, you're literally talking through the whole body. So it can be really nice to end with not talking and just letting the space either be silent or just have ambient, no lyrics music, just to ground and to really let that sacred pause happen at the end of this ceremony. And after you really feel that the space is closed, it can be really nice just to, slowly sit up, stay in the space, and just see if the person wants to talk. I would say that more than not, I'll wait for this. Okay, helicopter gone. Yeah, I would say more times than not, people want to talk about their experience, or sometimes they're kind of still in the medicine, like they're not fully done tripping at this point. And so maybe they can't quite yet articulate what they want to. So some people will want to talk more than others about their experience, about their downloads, about what happened, what shifted. And so just talking as much as they want or need. I feel like usually there's not as much conversation as the beginning because like you really just had this big experience. It is kind of hard to articulate everything right after it happens. And so, yes, you are just unwinding with the person, talking to them, seeing how they felt, how everything went with them, and really just kind of like wrapping and following up. And on that note, that they might not be done tripping, it's really important to either make sure that they are either at their own house. I think that's ideal if you can go to somebody's house and there's all these different factors, like if they have a room for it, if they have kids or something that would be really distracting, then that might not work. But if you can't do it at their house, then having a safe space or having them Uber to you, like getting an Uber or a Lyft or having a friend pick them up. Just something where they're not planning to go hop in their car and drive, because that's just like not safe. And yeah, the mushrooms could definitely keep working for 5, 6, maybe 7 hours if they were lingering. So while they're pretty much going to be done at this point, probably over 3 hours, between 3 and 4 hours since they took them at this point, they're going to be over the hump, but still not safe to drive. So just keep that in mind when you're setting up these ceremonies with people, either having it in a safe space or just making sure they have a safe ride. Definitely just like getting that all sorted beforehand for sure. And so, yes, after this section, you are just packing up your things, leaving, collecting payment. Usually for these sessions, I charge between $300 and $500 because it takes a few hours to do. I do expect in the future to probably raise those prices actually, but I feel that is been a good amount for the amount of time that I'm spending and giving people the ability to do multiple sessions actually. Just if you want an idea or you have no idea how much you would charge for something, that's what I charge. You can charge more, you can charge less, but that's just to give you an idea of what I'm doing. If you had literally no idea and you're like, do I charge 100? Do I charge 1,000? You could charge either of those, but this is what I'm doing right now at least. So, thinking if there's anything else I want to add to these beautiful mushroom ceremonies that have just been flowing into my life, honestly. And I'm so thankful for them. Like, so much of my healing has happened through plant medicine and not just the plant medicine, but also through the actual taking action of what the plant medicines tell me to do, because there's so many times or people where you take the medicine, you get the download, but then if you don't attach it to work after and you just keep taking more medicine thinking that you're going to it's just going to magically change your life or something. The thing is, they're magic mushrooms because they open your mind, but they aren't going to do the work for you. So it can show you a direction that you want to go in or manifest, but then you have to keep taking the actions to make that happen. But I do feel that the medicine can help open you up so that there's less fear about taking the actions and that you have more belief. And so with that belief, the things manifest even faster and you're more willing to put yourself out there because you feel your power, you see it, you feel less fear, and it really just helps you to manifest opportunities and relationships much faster, coming from that place of deeper knowing on the inside first. So yes, I feel that mushroom ceremony, different kinds of psychedelics have helped me immensely on my healing journey, which is why I am so fond of sharing this medicine with other people, and why I feel that yeah, this method in particular, this sequence that I've kind of just naturally discovered and felt into, can be really nice. So if you liked what I was saying, I would say recommend trying it on yourself first, because you need to feel what it feels like to be able to drop into psilocybin ceremony on your own and really feel comfortable with that whole process. So you can modify this whole sequence I was saying by, for instance, playing a meditation and then doing your own yoga, perhaps putting on music you like instead of a sound bath, or if you have instruments, playing your own sound bath. It's so fun on psychedelics, playing music and doing yoga, so you could do the sound bath for yourself. And then for the Sacred Body Awakening, I love a good massage ball, especially on the medicine. I've had some crazy experiences with a massage ball, like literally feeling what memories and emotions are stuck in really specific parts of my body, like where the massage ball was. Pretty wild, actually. So yes, you could do your own body work. You could do abhyanga, so oiling and giving yourself body massage, foot massage. So you could do that part for the kind of touch therapy portion of it. And then there's so many different yoga nidras and meditations on YouTube, on Spotify. So you can always have your playlist and everything kind of lined up for you, so that it's just going to like lead you through your whole ceremony and have all of that ready. So yes, I would recommend trying a few of these ceremonies on your own first. If we're ever in the same place together, I would love to facilitate one for you. And then I think once you feel comfortable doing these ceremonies on your own and you start to feel the effects of them, and once you have that belief and that confidence and you've been doing it on your own, then I think you'll be ready to share this with others, probably first with your friends. And then once that feels nice, then everything's an experience. And then I think you could start to try this technique, this order of things on your own and for other people. So I hope that this was an insightful podcast. I hope you enjoyed the story about the manifestation. And I hope that this has given you a little bit more inspiration on maybe how to constructively use mushrooms and how to facilitate one of these ceremonies, and given you some ideas that maybe resonated or sounded yummy that you want to incorporate maybe into your daily life, or maybe into your psychedelic practice, your ceremonial practice, this ritual space. So yes, I hope that you enjoyed. Please let me know any other questions that you have, and I will talk to you so soon. Thank you so much. Namaste.